Welcome to Foro Politico. My name is Marcos Palma. Thank you for joining us. Today we will talk about the latest on the presidential election 2016. For many years I have done political shows, but this time is historic. Never before we have seen this. By one side we had the GOP, the all-grand party, divided more than ever before. The establishment concerns about its presumptive candidate, Mr. Trump. The outsider. That one that nobody believed and insulting everyone is looking to be the Republican nominee in Cleveland. People call him fascist, racist, divisive, anti-immigrant, anti-trade. He insulted the Mexicans, Muslims, women. After the last primary, he has 1135 delegates and he needed 1237. It is an outsider that takes care of himself. The highest ranking of the House of Representatives, Paul Ryan, has said that right now he is not ready to support him. The Republican Super PAC has said that they will not give him money. By the way, he has raised more than $50 million. On the other side, we had the Democrats. A senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, that has divided also the Democratic Party. He has declared himself as a social democrat. He talks about a political revolution, free tuition for college, change the Affordable Care Act, $15 the minimum wage, the immigration reform for the 11 million undocumented, more taxes for the wealthy. We're talking about the 1% of this country. Even though Mr. Sanders keeps winning the primaries, according to the pundits, he is out of the race because he couldn't get the former State Secretary Hillary Clinton. By the way, she is being criticized for the Benghazi incident where 4 U.S. officials were killed. Also, the use of private server, where apparently she exchanged classified emails. His relations with the Wall Street, she offered conference for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The presumptive Republican nominee, Mr. Trump, has mentioned that she is playing the woman card in order to get the woman's support. During the last primary in Nebraska and West Virginia, she lost, but looks like she is winning. Right now, she has 2,237 delegates. By the other side, Bernie Sanders has 1,469. The winner needs 2,383 delegates for the nomination. Mrs. Clinton has raised $236 million. And I want to welcome one of the guests for today's show is Mr. Steven Figueroa, a Latino advocate. Thank you very much, Mr. Figueroa. And also I want to welcome to Jose, a political analyst, and thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Jose. And I want to start showing the Democrat Bernie Sanders after yesterday's victory in Nebraska and West Virginia.
Let me begin by giving you all some pretty good news. Last week we won a really great victory in Indiana. And tonight it appears that we've won a big victory in West Virginia. And with your help, we're going to win in Oregon next week.
We can see that Mr. Sanders has been talking a lot about the economy of this country. And after yesterday that he keeps winning and winning, Mr. Figueroa, what's your reaction about Mr. Bernie Sanders keeps winning, but however, he couldn't reach Mrs. Hillary Clinton?
He's running for the vice presidency of the United States. It's as simple as that.
But don't you think that he, instead of helping the Democratic Party, he's dividing the Democratic Party because millions of people are there with him?
Absolutely, but he's also synergizing the base. In order to demonstrate to Hillary, you need me if you want to take out Donald Trump. You need me because with me comes the youth. I'm the icing on the cake.
And this will prove that Hillary will be the winner by default anyway, because he's too far behind Hillary, and it'd be impossible to to reach the numbers.
But don't you see, Mr. Jose, about the division, like the Republicans, that they're also divided, and then we seen in the Democratic, because the millennials.
No, I don't
were
think so.
With Mr. Bernie Sanders.
I don't think so.
And in the way that he talks, free tuition, Affordable Care Act modified, and more taxes for the wealthy.
Oh, Mr. Sanders is more socialist than anything else. And Mr. Sanders is unrealistic. Where the money is going to come out from, everything he's offering is unreal. It's not doable. I believe Mr. Sanders, it's a great speaker, you know, and he does a very good debates, and he's an expert. But everything that he's saying, it's impossible to do because the money had to come out from somewhere.
One of the things that we have seen in the Democratic race, that they haven't attacked each other like the Republicans. We started with 17 candidates, 17. And now we have only one. By the other side, the Democrats, we start with 5.
Well, Marcos,
we have only 2.
And the other thing
We haven't seen that nasty
The other thing I want to say is, again, that we say last time in the program, you know, the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is that I believe Democrats are behaving very professional. Sanders stops any mud against Hillary, and I think Hillary has never been unprofessional against Sanders. I believe there's no comparison. There's no comparison. The Republican Party is being torn apart. I think it's very uncertain what will happen after those elections. I don't know if they will exist.
We are seeing the ending of the Republican Party as we have known it for the last.
It should be.
One of the things Donald Trump said this year is that the 1% are going to get a tax increase. So
but
it sucks to be a 1%, either Bernie Sanders, Hillary, or Trump. They're going to get taxed.
Well, one of the things that we can see about Mr. Trump, that today he said something, in the morning he says something, at noon he says something else, and the night he changed his mind. We don't know who's this kind of guy. It's like we see in two.
I know who he's a liar.
Well,
he's a liar.
Mr. Bernie Sanders called him a liar.
Everybody,
liar.
You know what? My
him.
3-year-old nephew called him a liar too. Well, anybody call him a liar.
But if we be fair, Mr. Jose, politicians we can put in that category. Only if you be honest. I mean, we try to be honest.
I think there is many honest politicians.
But it's good to find who is.
I think either one, Hillary or Sanders, that they'd be great people for directing this country. But I think ultimately Hillary has the most experience. And I think instead of having a ticket on her favor for being a female, I think she had that against her, because I think in this country, this will be historical, that the first time in history that a female becomes a president of the United States. Isn't the truth?
Oh, absolutely. But
so she has a little disadvantage.
Right.
And even though she has the disadvantage, she's so far ahead because everybody knows that she is real.
She said something over the weekend that is so true. Anything Donald Trump throws at her, they've been fighting for the last 10 years. She can handle it. Okay? So they've been talking about the Bill Clinton issues, the Monica Lewinsky. She's already been there, done that. That's old news. And guess what? The millennial, the new voter, they weren't even around when that happened. They're not going to even remember.
But you know what's so silly? Donald Trump, during this time that Hillary Clinton went through this issue with Mr. Clinton, Trump was the best friend.
And Trump was cheating on his wife. No, he was cheating on his wife with the new one.
Later,
not one time. He cheated his wife many times.
Later, we're going to show one of the latest videos from the Democratic Super PAC. They're going to mention about those things that you're mentioning right now. But before they keep it going, I would like to ask you about what's your comment about Bernie Sanders? He said that he's the only one that can defeat Mr. Donald Trump, not Hillary Clinton. He's been saying, he's been handling in campaign, that he's mentioned that.
Oh, he's very wrong. He's very wrong, because I believe if somebody can defeat Trump, it have to be Hillary. You know, Sanders, I think he's too old. I think he's very old for defeating Trump. I think Trump can defeat Sanders if Sanders ends up being which is not going to happen. But if Sanders would be the nominee on the Democratic Party, I think Democratic Party taking a big risk.
Let's remember, all Hillary needs to win is 13% of the electorates, and she's in. He could win 85% of all the rest of the votes, and she still win with 15%.
Mr. Figueroa, explain to me about the thousands of people that filled out those studies about Bernie Sanders. How can you explain to me? How can you explain to the people that he has a lot of people following Mr. Sanders?
Okay, he's running for vice president. It's as simple as that. He's telling the powers that be, you're going to have to mess with me throughout your presidency. So you better start ready to making deals with me. And I got the people that I could rally to support if I have to. I'm going to be the thorn in your side if you don't give me what I want.
Then you don't think that he's dividing the party?
But if you really, if you look at the numbers, 50% of the people that support Hillary is the people that support Sanders. I mean, Sanders don't have not even 70% of the numbers that Hillary have. There's no way. I mean, it's like let's talk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, everybody's saying that the country he says the people elected me. It's not really the people. It's only a few racist, Anglo, uneducated people that are supporting a racist. The rest of the educated Anglo community is not supporting Trump. You know, they're not going to support because they're more aware of that.
I've never seen so many Republicans, and I know, including my father, my brothers, who are saying they're voting for Hillary. And they've been Republicans their whole life.
You're talking about Republicans
Latino Republicans saying
voting for Hillary Clinton.
They're voting for Hillary. They cannot.
I would say 99% of Latinos that were Republicans, was very little, I think they will vote for Democrats.
I was in Sacramento last week, and there's a prediction that 13% of the Latinos will vote for.
I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna ask you to hold that.
13% of the Republicans Latinos.
Yes, yes.
There's just nothing.
Yeah.
It's really maybe like
in California.
3%
In California.
Yeah.
But let's see in other states. We're gonna take a break, Mr. Jose. We're gonna take a break, but I'll be right back. Stay tuned, please, in Foro Politico. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about the presidential election 2016, this historic race that we are living in our lifetime. It's very important that you go out and vote in June 7 during the election. Is a primary for California. Remember, they are the groups that doesn't welcome the Mexican immigrants, doesn't want the Muslims, doesn't want the woman. They want to divide us. Enough is enough. Is the opportunity to repudiate this kind of hate speech, faces. This is an immigrant country. Maybe you do not remember, but in 1945, after World War II, there were 4 million Mexican workers that helped this nation to defeat the Germans. These people were called braceros. Without them, maybe we were not here. Just think about it. Now I want to show you a video about the latest video from the Democratic Super PAC that they're supporting Mrs. Clinton.
Because nobody respects women more than Donald Trump.
She came to my wedding. She ate like a pig. And seriously, the wedding cake was like missing in action.
Does she have a good body? No.
Of course.
Does she have a fat ass? Absolutely.
Well, I just don't respect her as a journalist. I have no respect for her. I don't think she's very good. I think she's highly overrated. But when I came out, and you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
Well, obviously, it's great outer beauty. I mean, we could say politically correct that the look doesn't matter, but the look obviously matters. Like you wouldn't have your job if you weren't beautiful.
Donald Trump knocking supermodel Heidi Klum in the New York Times, saying Heidi Klum, sadly, she's no longer a 10.
A person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10, okay?
Right.
You know what? The women get it better than we do, folks. All right? They get it better than we do.
I see. So you treat women with respect.
I can't say that either.
All right, good.
Unfortunately, we don't have a woman to ask the reaction to the latest video. Again, this is from the Democrat Super PAC. Mr. Jose, what's your reaction about this? Remember, this is from the Democrat Super PAC that's supporting Mrs. Clinton, and she has raised more than $200 million.
I think Donald Trump doesn't respect anybody. I think Donald Trump doesn't see the value of the women's, and I believe that Donald Trump doesn't care for anybody other than white Anglo-Americans, and I think his dream is like a Hitler to convert this country to whites only again, and it looks to me like majority of the white Anglo that are educated are not supporting him on his atrocities that he's trying to do. I believe he will be a very serious danger for this country. And I was talking to a little kid not long ago in church, and he was mentioning, and he said that Donald Trump looks like the Antichrist. And I think even a little kid can see that on Mr. Trump.
But don't you think that
they're afraid for him to be a president?
But don't you think that he's mentioning that to call the attention of people, even though what happened with Pete Wilson? Do you remember Pete Wilson with the 187 against immigrants undocumented that they called criminals? And then Jim Brower in Arizona.
Yeah, you know what?
They
Let's
called
remember
to
Pete
the
Wilson.
spotlight. But Donald Trump is the same in Tancredo. Maybe you remember
But
Tancredo
after
from Colorado.
Pete Wilson, and
But
we did
there
our
were-
Million Man March in LA, guess what? We now have 28 Latino legislators. So give it all we got, and we're going to give it right back.
But don't you think that
Yes.
that called the attention that way at that moment, and then he tried to change his mind and say, I'm going to back up what I said, and then, because look at, call Mexicans criminals, call Mexicans drug dealers, call Mexicans rapists. That's not right. That's not, but the worst thing that in Mexico, nobody responds that way that they suppose. That started June the 16th when he started. They started talking about after that he started winning the primaries. How can they wait so long? And they say, okay, now they're waiting and waiting to respond to Mr. Trump.
I believe they in Mexico, they don't care for the immigrants. I don't think they will ever respond. They're so busy doing their own thing in Mexico.
Well, we have latest, for example, Mr. Fox and Mr. Calderon, they respond strongly to
We
him.
apologize to Donald Trump. How could Fox apologize?
Mr. Fox, he's a wimp. Mr. Fox, he's not a man. You know, Mr. Fox, I don't know why people really listen to him. When I heard him talking, I just turned it off because he's a hypocrite. He done so many things on his career that he's not a real politic. He was put as a president by the PRI secretly, and a lot of stuff that we don't want to talk about in this program. But let's go back to Trump, and I do have to make a comment that I don't understand how the American Anglo are thinking that Trump could be a good leader of this country. I believe, thanks God, it's just a minority of people supporting Trump, and I think Trump has no chance to win, and I think Trump is not going to get anywhere. Muslims will not vote for Trump. Latinos will not vote for Trump. I don't think the females will vote for him. I don't even think the transgenders will vote for Trump. I think he's a liar. I think in the morning he say he hates women, and in the afternoon he say he loves women. You know, and I believe that Trump is just there for the taking. You know,
Clearly,
he's a politician.
Clearly, this man has had issues with his mother. Clearly, that are carrying on into his adulthood. I mean, maybe his mother was a trap. I don't know. Maybe she did things to him. I don't know.
But that's.
You think she abused him? Maybe.
Oh, it's kind of obvious. He's
sexually.
Multiple things. In that was
the way he acted. The way he acted, it looks like his mother sexually abused him.
His brother's died an alcoholic. Okay, his father was like, it was horrible, always being yelled at by the mom. I mean, his father led the Ku Klux Klan in a riot.
One of the things that we're going to show later, one of the comedians, Jon Stewart, that he talks about that when he mentioned it, that Mr. Trump is a mom's baby. But I'm going to show you that later. But going back to the people that does not support. We have the House of the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. He did not support him. The establishment, GOP, does not support him. The Bushes does not support him.
Any high caliber Republican has not support Trump yet.
So far. But remember, politicians change their mind.
Even the Koch brothers have said they're going to support Hillary Clinton. I think hell is frozen over.
But tomorrow they're going to have a meeting. Mr. Trump and Paul Ryan, they're going to be the establishment. We don't know who's going to happen in that meeting.
They've already had 2 prior meetings.
But we do not know.
And they fell apart. They've had 2 prior meetings.
So I really think it's not up to Paul Ryan either. You know why? Because this is hurting the party.
Yeah.
This is hurting the party really bad. The image of the party with Donald Trump in the front, I think that the party is gone. I think they need to come out to make a new party.
It is no longer the party of Lincoln. It is no longer the party of Reagan. This is now the party of Nazi Trump. Bottom line.
And the good Republicans that are not supporting him, they group in somewhere else. And you know, there is a big movement right now within the party, and top caliber Republicans are gathering together to make a movement against Trump, to find an option and to say, okay, just in case Trump is not, who? So I believe we're going to have a lot of surprises before November.
Let's face
You
it.
think in Cleveland we had in the convention, because before Ted Cruz giving up, they were talking about an open convention. But then when he's retired,
talk about
they
the
say, yeah, but they were talking about an open convention. That means that they're going to have troubles. But once Ted Cruz decided not to keep going in the race, they said, okay, Donald Trump is a
They're already
presumptive
talking
Republican
about
nominee.
Chicago 1968 all over
But that
again,
was before.
where riots occurred in it's happening all over again.
Do you think that's still happening? That will
It's
happen?
going to happen.
Well, one of the-
Prediction here: there will be riots outside the Republican convention.
You know, every elections, when it comes to the party, they had to raise a certain amount of money, and they short. And guess why? Most of the sponsors, most of the donors are holding back because they see this huge mess within the party, and they say, wait a minute, the nominee of the Republicans is not being supported by the Republicans. Why should I waste my money? Correct? So we don't know. Probably the Cleveland party will not be as good as in the past because they short of funds. They don't have the funds.
We have to face the new party is called Decline the State. Independents are just fed up.
But one of the things I want to mention, that even though Mr. Trump had mentioned that even though nobody helps him to get the nomination, how can he have to change his mind and keep supporting the
Because
party?
he won't post his taxes. He's a fraud. He's money on paper, but he has no cash on hand.
One that you call that taxes that he doesn't want to rebuild since 2009, and Mitt Romney has been pushing him to get out from those taxes. We have the case about the University Trump also, and he will be talking about after November the election.
If
and
he
then we have many
releases those
cases.
taxes, they become part of the court hearing in San Diego and the University of Trump.
But that's going to be after November. Remember, it's not going. The case is going to start in the next months. But he's going to call to testify after November.
A good attorney could subpoena the court to say, we need those taxes now as part of our discovery, and that could be happening.
And it should happen. You know, Donald Trump is very slick, and he just make it up. And it seems to me like our Democratic Party is allowing them to get away with that. I don't believe that he cannot show his taxes because he's into a lawsuit. That's not the case. If you are an honest person and you pay your taxes, what is the problem with showing your taxes?
What he said,
in court and anywhere else.
Well, what he said is that he's been in audition. The IRS he's doing an audit.
No,
That's
the IRS
what he
has said they're not auditing him. That's a false claim.
Wait a minute, but let me tell you something. There is no IRS code that said that if you've been audited, you're not supposed to show your taxes to anybody. That doesn't exist.
And one other thing that IRS said.
My point is, you can be audited, but if you are subpoena and somebody asks you to show your taxes, you should show your taxes. There is no reason why not show your taxes.
Well, it's a defense that
unless you're a crook, unless you are fraudulent, and you're afraid that the United States citizens will see who you are, and then you go and lie again and say, I can't show my taxes because I've been under an audit. That's a really dumb excuse that he has put in front of the American citizens to fool them, again and say, I'm sorry, I can't show my taxes. That's not valid. He needs to show his taxes. Voters, if you guys don't see his taxes, don't vote for him. He needs to show the taxes. We need to see who is this man, and we need to know if he's involved with the Panama Papers as well.
And the Russian mafia.
And the Russian mafia as well.
There's many things that he has to face.
Right.
That's why they do not have to vote for him. Well, we're going to take another break, Mr. Jose and Mr. Figueroa, and we keep having this discussion about Mr. Trump. We're going to take a break, but I'll be right back with Foro Politico. Thank you for joining us in Foro Politico. I'm going to read this quote from Mr. Trump about the national debt, his plan, his proposal in case that he becomes the president. In the event the U.S. economy crashes, Donald Trump has floated a recovery plan based on his own experience with corporate bankruptcy. Pay America's creditors less than a full value on the U.S. treasuries they hold. And I want to hear your comment about the proposal from Mr. Trump. What do you think about that? In case that, for example, China and other countries, well, United States is owes a lot of money with
Just
China.
briefly, it's about the full faith and credit of this country. If we default on our loans, our word, our value is worthless. Our dollar will fall so fast.
You know, Steve, the only reason we got investors coming to America to invest money is because they see the value of a strong dollar that is always kept the value and that is always done good to every investor that comes from any other country.
Right.
If we follow Donald Trump's ridiculous plan, our country will fall. Not only, can you imagine the consequences and the secondary effects of a bankruptcy for the country? That's a shame. See, hold on. Shame because Donald Trump is not, he has no shame. Donald Trump filed so many bankruptcies, but let me tell you one thing. When Donald Trump filed those bankruptcies and he defaulted and so many people, that shows you right there what Donald Trump can do for American citizens. If he promised you Social Security or something, he just filed bankruptcy and he will not give you anything. He's a coyote. He's a real coyote, you know, because do you guys understand how the bankruptcy works? The bankruptcy court, it's the biggest fraud in America. You know, the reason I say that is because the bankruptcy court, the intention was good when American enact the bankruptcy court, it was to protect the person that honestly cannot handle his financials any longer. So, for example, I'm an honest citizen and somehow I got out of balance. I'm out of control. And I can't pay my house, I can't pay my car, I can't pay anything, I cannot pay my creditors. I had the right to go and tell the judge, Your Honor, I can no longer handle it. Here's, handle it for me. Then guess what the judge does? They do a Chapter 7, Chapter 13, or Chapter 11. If you're a corporation, you do Chapter 11. If you do Chapter 11, you go and you file bankruptcy and stay in bankruptcy for 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, you only pay 10%, 10 cents in a dollar to all the creditors. So guess what Trump does? Trump go and put together a casino and bring in a couple $1 billion, a few $1 billion with creditors, with loans. And all he needs to do in a few years, he goes and declares bankruptcy and he doesn't pay any one of the investors. This is exactly his tactics. And he's trying to tell us that this tactic, it's okay to use it in the United States against the countries.
Mom and Dad Smith, who are on Social Security, sorry, we can only pay 10%. How do you say that to all those American investors who are depending on their pension plans, who bought treasury bonds?
American voters.
Too bad, 10 cents on the dollar. He can't do it to China without doing it to grandma and grandpa.
Well, example will put to the families also, since this country has got a good reputation.
Well, this is a bad way to teach American young teenagers how to do business. If you're going to do business based on fraud, the way Donald Trump has done fraud on bankruptcies, because that's fraud. If you have creditors and you refuse to pay them just because you had a system that is corrupted and this system allowed you to do it, you had no shame to do that.
If you look at what Trump is doing, it's a page right out of Hugo Chavez. I'll just take your company, you've worked hard, and guess what? We own it now and we're not giving you anything for it. And what happened? He drove the companies into the ground.
Mr. Figueroa, but explain to me how people follow him. Why? How people
only a few people.
No.
Only a few people.
He himself has admitted white, middle-aged, undereducated males are his biggest followers.
Racist. Only racist.
This is the last great white hope, the last of the Ku Klux Klan. They're taking
All right,
a stand.
since you've been advocated, the Latino advocated, what can we do about it? What can we do about to try to stop that kind of hate message? Those kind of lies that
he's
been saying?
Exactly what Martin Luther King, what Bobby Kennedy, what Cesar Chavez, and others have taught us. One, we've got to vote, not just register and not show up. We got to demand our family and our friends vote. But two, we got to teach us what Martin and Cesar taught us. We got to learn how to call financial literacy, how to boycott. If those companies that are supporting Trump don't want us here, Hobby Lobby, we don't need you. It's as simple as that.
But we need a leader, Mr. Figueroa. Who will be the leader to try to stop that, to try to create boycott?
Perhaps that leader hasn't arisen because we know out of great times come great leaders, or great difficult times have risen. And maybe it will be one leader, maybe it'll be multiple leaders.
Tell me about the Latino leader that would start those kind of hate speeches, that kind of hate that these men is trying to send to the American people. Who will be the man? Don't tell me about an organization, because we had Naleo, we had La Raza, we had Lula, we have many divisions. How can nobody can stop this kind of mess? How can nobody start by talking CNN, MSNBC, and Fox and showing that man, the Latino community, is not
Marcos, so we are under the Constitution. Donald Trump has the right to say what he's saying. He's not saying anything that is not protected under the Constitution.
And CNN gave him the time. They gave him billions of dollars of free advertisement. We want to complain about Donald Trump. We complain to MSNBC, we complain to CNN, and we complain to Fox.
And I agree with that.
But I agree, CNN is just buddy-buddy with Donald Trump. Yeah. That's what they do.
But he's been very smart, because he's using the media. He's not buying the media. That's why he's doing, I mean, making phone calls on Sundays, and they taking those phone calls. We haven't seen this before in other past elections.
Well, the media is giving it to him, but I really believe the media is responsible. Is responsible for what's happening. But however, I still think Donald Trump is under the Constitution. So nobody can stop him. There's no way you can stop him.
It's as simple as this. It's called discrimination. CNN would never give a Latino leader the time if he was there. And so if we had a Latino leader who started a march, I don't care if he had 1 million people around him, they would not cover it. In fact, they would make it un-American on Fox and cover it, but never give the
Steve, that's why we need Latino PBS, because Latino PBS is the only outlet that we have that we can rely on, that can get this in English and Spanish and get our people together so we can communicate to each other and give them the opportunity to do a speech. There is no other outlet. Even Univision. Univision is out there for the money as well. Like anybody else, they need to survive. So we are out of luck. And on top of that, we have corrupted organizations that they all sell themselves to those people that give them money. LULAC receives a lot of money from all of those organizations. Look at Javier from La Raza. All of these people are corrupted.
I agree with you 100%. Mergers are going on. Let's give that organization $10,000 and they'll support us. Let's buy a table for $500.
I'll buy $800,000.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Latino Media Coalition, Alex Nogales, he gets money from Comcast and he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. He's interested for the donation that he gets from Comcast. We don't have any support. We don't have any leaders. We don't have any nonprofits. We don't have any organization that will support us. Everything we have is really out there for sale. And anybody can buy it.
That's we do it the old-fashioned way. We earn it. Blood, sweat, and tears.
Blood, sweat, and tears. Now we're going to talk. Now we're going to talk about other issue from Mr. Figueroa. That he just found out that in Victorville there was a disabled girl, 17 years old, that she was harassed. We have not many details, but since Mr. Figueroa has been an advocate, what happened so far? What do you know about the case?
Unfortunately, it's a tragedy that keeps reoccurring. Trump speaks out, and Latino children pay the price in our schools. And in this particular case, paraplegic young girl, young immigrant family, young girl, 17, cerebral palsy, seizure disorder, nonverbal, and other disabilities. She comes home with scratches and bruises and a broken leg that nobody reported as they were required to by law. Mom goes to the school to find out what's going on, and they tell her they don't know what she was talking about. In fact, they're claiming she didn't even go to school there now. What's being uncovered is that the bus driver now knows the teacher brought it to the bus. She was attending Cobalt in Victorville. Just a big summary. She's a resident of Victorville whose school district boundary is a Snowline School District, but because she's so disabled, they put her back in a SALPA program, in a county program, back in Victorville, right near her house, where she should have been going. And nobody claims responsibility. So mom says, I want to file a complaint. She speaks Spanish. They ignore her. And because the family is Spanish and immigrant, how often do we see this? Because it wasn't videotaped. It didn't happen. It's happened. We now have, there's an active investigation from the Sheriff's Department, from the local police department, and Child Protective Services, and we're going to be filing with the FBI.
And that is one of the things.
But I think, Steve, you're right. Donald Trump lately, with this, the speech that he has done against Latinos, I believe he motivated the racist Anglo most in the rural areas to be more aggressive against Latinos.
Absolutely. I've been advocating.
So that means he's dividing us again. Instead of we get more interracial together, with a white Anglo rural community. We are dividing because of Donald Trump.
And we have not seen just in rural areas. We have in Santana, the KK Cruz, the Ku Klux Klan, when they got together in Anaheim, and they keeps fighting the way that they ended because
Trump
they tried
shows up in Costa Mesa, peaceful city, now has a riot, first time in its history.
Well, because Donald Trump, he's the devil. Donald Trump is Hitler. And I think Donald Trump has a way to incite people in racist issues, and the people tend to follow him.
He comes to California, there's already organizations, they're going to be marching. It's as simple as that. He's a dangerous man who never has to pay the consequences for his actions. Everyone else pays the consequences, whether it's in bankruptcy or society, for Donald Trump. You know what? We have a saying in our community, it's called "Ya basta," enough, because when you come to California, just like we kicked Joe Arpaio out, we're going to kick you out, Donald Trump.
mentioned one of the cases.
I like that.
Joe Arpaio.
Arpaio was kicked by Steve. Steve played the mariachi there.
Steve, how come you haven't run? You told me that you ran for the state position, for the state senate. How can you keep not running for another election, another position?
I've often been asked, in fact, I've been asked to run for several positions, but my passion is with our gente, because I tell you what, maybe I haven't run, but I got the access, and I've made things happen for our kids, and pushing legislation.
I know Steve for so many years, and I never met an individual like Steve. I'm even worried when he got a heart problem. I was worried that I hope
you're not lost.
I thought, well, first of all, if we lose Steve, we don't have anybody else.
Here in the Inland Empire.
In the whole country. In the whole country. We don't have anybody else like him. And I thought, if we lose Steve, it's a victory for Arpaio. Maybe Arpaio poisoned him or something. I thought, because Steve's been so against him. But anyway, going back to Donald Trump, I just want to direct my attention to the white Anglo racist, minorities races in the country. And I want to warn you that you should leave the races behind. You need to grow up. And you need to realize that we are here and we're not going anywhere. And we got positions and we got money too. And we're going to be here promoting our poor people, regardless if they African Americans or if they Anglo or if they Latino. We're going to be promoting everybody else.
Well, Mr.
Liberal Latino activists that I know for the first time are saying, maybe we should learn how to exercise our Second Amendment. People that never believed in guns before are saying, maybe at this time, as a Latino American, I need to learn about my Second Amendment.
Well, if you travel a lot to Washington, D.C., would you like to have a conversation with Mr. Trump? What would you tell him?
With Mr. Trump? Well, I would like to not even get close to him. I really think he's a loser. I don't care how much money his father inherited him, and I don't know, numbers. But I understand instead of making his fortune grow, he's going backwards, except the money that he's stealing from investors. But I really don't have any reason, any desire to get close to any negative, evil people like Donald Trump. I really don't think I don't think he's a politic.
He's a businessman.
I think he's not a business person. He's a racist, and I think inside him there is a hate hidden that he's transmitting to the minority Anglo, uneducated Anglo, racist, and I believe that we all have to be aware. Don't give Donald Trump any codes for any missiles, because we've been in trouble,
And we haven't.
And I want to tell this to the Anglo-American, just to the racist one. If we go into a war because Donald Trump, he's the most crazy man and the most crazy president that could be for anywhere, and I hope he never wins. You send your child to the war. I will not send my child. You send your child. If you really believe on Donald Trump, send your kids to war, because he's going to create a war, and he wants the Latinos to go to war for him, and we're not going to go to war for him.
Bravo.
We're going to fight for that, and we don't let the African Americans, we don't let the Latinos, and we don't let the Asian go to the war. Have the racist people go to the war.
1968, hell no, we won't go.
We won't go, and we won't go to remember Vietnam, and remember that right now we're facing huge problems in Iraq, in Syria, and that's talking about. It's not about me, it's not about us, it's about your kids, your grandkids, it's about the American people that cannot suffer another Iraq war. Remember that Iraq war, that many people, there were like 4,000 soldiers that they passed away, that they died, and thousands of more injured. This is why we don't want a man like that in the White House. We're gonna take a break, but I'll be right back in Foro Politico. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about the presidential election 2016, and now we go back to the issue about the national debt for the United States. Mr. Jose, explain to us about the situation. If this country declares bankruptcy, what will happen to me, to you, to that single person, to the American people that they not reached? They don't have money to support that kind of situation. Maybe we wouldn't have jobs. We will lose our houses. But to the regular American people, what will happen?
First of all, I don't think that will ever happen. Secondly, the only instance that this can happen is, again, if the Congress and the Senate are controlled by the Republicans and Donald Trump is in the White House, and then he has a white check. He got a blank check. And then probably anything can happen, right? Because they make decisions in their own, and they're going to be dictators for this country. However, if that will happen, if we ever go bankruptcy and we default in our promise to the investors that come, the other countries that come to invest to our country or any other investors, that's the end of this country. That's really the end of the economy. I believe the United States will no longer be the foreign monetary currency reserve. I believe we're going to be taken over by China because China is more decent. And China is not going to declare bankruptcy. China might have other options to act. But anyway, in any event, anything that Mr. Loser, Mr. Crook, Donald Trump is saying is really not correct. It's very incorrect, and it's very, very immature to say that he has those proposals, this unveiling plan for the United States. None of that's going to work. I don't need to be an economist to tell you that his plans are so ridiculous, and any American that are not informed, please inform yourself before you just jump crazy and vote for him just because he's talking, okay? You need to investigate. You need to make sure.
Since you've been traveled all around the world,
yes, I am.
Mainly in the Asian area, I know that those leaders, they're also afraid of Mr. Trump. What have you heard about when you travel to those countries?
I don't think they're afraid. I think they laughing at Donald Trump, and they laugh in the United States because they can see how disarray this country is in today's economy and today's date. This is the time the United States have to be together within the country so we can win this economic war. We're at war with China, and we're at a good war. We're not at fighting with weapons. We're fighting with the economy. Well, yeah, exactly. But I really think our country is still way superior to Russia and way superior to China. I believe we still are, but I think one big mistake to put somebody like Donald Trump in charge to lead this country, and one mistake, we can have a huge imbalance.
China and Russia see what's going on, and their military is becoming adventurous because they're seeing the U.S., because of Donald Trump, is in a state of shock of what's going on. So their being military is being adventurous. It's as simple as that. Trump is costing us money with his words. Russia's economy is not even bigger than California's economy is bigger than the Russian economy.
You know, in a perfect world, a president gets intelligent advisors, right? Donald Trump will not listen to anybody. He's a dictator. He feels so confident of every lie that comes out of his mouth. He believes it's the truth. And the people that follow him let the racist passion take over. You know, and they're not seeing the real truth.
There's a movie that describes this whole thing. It's called The Manchurian Man. It's where an American who's actually a spy for our enemies runs for president. If you look at The Manchurian Man, go look at it. It describes Donald Trump to the T.
Have you seen in this area, in the Inland Empire, those white guys, extremists, KKK,
absolutely, I have confronted them face to face.
And did they get more excited about this candidate?
Absolutely.
Well, I believe the facade behind Donald Trump is KKK.
Right.
All of these people that are supporting Donald Trump, they sympathize with KKK. And they believe this is a white country only.
Let me tell you how deep I go on this. I represented the son of the head of the Nazi party, Joseph Hall, who shot his Nazi father. I was his court-appointed advocate. Right. And some of the stuff that I read, and if you go back and read those court documents, like how they go to the Mexican border with the FBI knowing and shoot Mexicans as they cross, immigrants as they cross, and they did nothing to prosecute this. So yeah, I mean, part of the Minutemen were born in Victorville.
That's why we have seen these kind of cases, the case that you brought about this girl. And now, Mr. Jose, have you seen also this kind of discrimination since you live here very close to Victorville, to Apple Valley, where we have seen the kind of police racism against people, against immigrants, Temecula. We have seen it, for example.
Not only seen it, I live discrimination too, like anybody else, and I feel the disadvantage that just by being Latino, doesn't matter. Until they know who I am and they know that I can defend myself, and then they became professional.
And they change their mind.
But when they see you just as a Latino and they think, you know, you're just a construction worker or you're just a housekeeper, they're going to step and they're going to push you down and they're going to step in your rights and they're not going to respect you just because the looks. And that happened all the time.
How come all the businessmen and Latino businesswomen all got together to try to stop this man? Is there any way that you can see that all those people that had economic power that can go behind somebody to try to stop this guy?
No, Marcos, everybody's busy in their own business, their own worlds, and a lot of people, we don't have an organization that would do this. We need an organization. We need to organize ourselves. We need to have some organization like La Raza that would be a real organization to go and ask the business people for money and say, Jose, can you donate $100,000 for this cause? And let me tell you, if I worth $50 million, $100,000 is nothing for me. I will donate the $100,000. But there is no organization that will do it, and there is no organization that will protect the Latino rights.
And organization that you can trust either.
Well, no, I applaud you for what you're doing here, bringing this out, because this is more than $100,000. For all those people out there watching, we're getting the message. So my applause to you publicly for getting the message out on La Raza and getting out there to vote. That's $1 million, not $100,000.
Thank you very much, Mr. Figueroa, Mr. Jose. Thank you. Something else? You had the last word?
A huge pleasure to be here with you guys. Marco, welcome. I haven't seen you for a while, but we're happy to see you again.
No, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you. And thank you again to you to watch us, to keep watching Foro Politico, and everything in life is politics. You are part of this society that was built in the equality, justice, and respect. My name is Marcos Palma. On behalf of everybody that makes possible Foro Politico, thank you so much and see you soon.
Sí se puede.